People often ask us, is this Dull Men's Club, is it a movement? No, it's not a movement. We like to stay put. People also ask us, is the Dull Men's Club one of these 12-step programs? No. 12-step programs try to get people to change their behavior. The Dull Men's Club is a 2-step program. We admit we're dull, and we're going to keep it that way. There's more to enjoying a dull life than watching paint dry. One thing I like to do when I come to London is to go to what I understand is the United Kingdom's longest escalator. It's the escalator at the Angel Tube Station. I love to ride that escalator. It's like I'm just floating down into the subway station. It's a nice, long, comfortable ride, plenty of time to just stand there and relax, not be worried about getting off. There's always that anxiety that builds up when you get to the end of an escalator ride about whether the people in front of you may just stop. Every year on our website, we accumulate what we regard as Dull Men of the Year. One of the nominees last year was Peter Willis, a retired postman living in Malvern in Worcestershire.
It may sound big-headed, but yes, I do consider myself an artist. But I try very hard. I'm very conscious of what's behind the box or boxes. I try very hard. And one of my best examples, which they did use in the Warhol moment last year, was on the Ormond and Llandudno trams, just what we would call a bog standard tin box on a pole. Some in our society actively avoid them, they're just ordinary. But there's one halfway up the Grand Ormond and Llandudno, and I did what you're doing here. I paced my shot and I waited for a tram to go up in the background, and it's going about 45 degrees. And to me, that said so much, and it added to the beauty almost of this ordinary bog standard postbox. One of the benefits of joining the Letterbox study group is access and use of their database, which records as faithfully as possible the over 110, 15,000 postboxes, both live and out of use. And the unit itself, it has a feature where you can set it to give you a warning, an alarm prompt for what they call a waypoint. And that is very, very, very useful. And by having this chap, and it will tell me the distance, and it will tell me whether it's south, east, northwest, etc., etc. Very, very useful, and I would be lost without it. Wonderful box, absolutely lovely, love it. 160 years old, but a rubbish plate, and when it was put on crooked, and it's remained crooked ever since. No one seems to care.
You know, I just love sitting on a bench like this to take my time. Time is wonderful. Time is what keeps everything from happening all at once. Wouldn't it be terrible if everything happened all at once? There wouldn't be anything else to do. There's one gentleman we really admire here in the UK. It's Kevin Beersford. Kevin founded the Roundabout Appreciation Society and is very active with it to this day.
To define a roundabout, they come in many guises. We have a lot of technical terms for roundabouts. We have Titchmarshes, which is an island in full bloom. We have the PMT, which is a painted mini traffic island. We have double curbers, red ringers, Greek islands, geek islanders. We have a whole glossary of terms. I think to be a roundabout spotter, you have to accept that it's a bit of a sedate sort of hobby. It's almost got certain Zen-like qualities to it. I feel there's no such thing as an uninteresting roundabout. Even the humble PMT, we call a PMT, that's a painted mini traffic island. They were invented by the late, great Frank Blackmore, and all it is a white circle painted, and it's a stroke of genius it was. I think the thing with roundabouts, our society now is making people look at these roundabouts in a different light. They've been in front of us all our driving lives. And I think we need to just take a step back and just go round the roundabout twice. Yeah, there's a big row at the moment where there's a flyover being built in Wellington in New Zealand. I don't know how I get to hear this news, but there's a big uproar because the New Zealand roundabout actually has their cricket ground on it as well. And the last thing they want is a huge flyover going past their beautiful cricket ground come roundabout. The actual meetings where we decide what roundabout actually goes in the calendar can get quite heated. But at the end of the day, I'm the president of the UKRAS. I'm also known as Lord of the Rings, and my decision is final. I think as a roundabout enthusiast, I see myself as an artist. My work, my calendars are put on people's walls, so yeah, I like to capture a slice of English life that nobody else would bother with. I'm sitting on a roundabout with a film crew at the moment. This is one of the fellow roundabout spotters here. He's actually made love on a roundabout.
The modern world is busy, busy, busy. Everything is faster than it ever used to be. You know, it used to take a steamship to go back and forth from here to America. It used to take wagons to get places. One thing I like about traveling, I don't really mind to go anywhere as long as there are park benches there. Also, I don't mind traveling anywhere, taking a vacation anywhere, as long as there's a place and a time I can nap. A bench like this without arms is actually a good bench for napping on. If somebody were to say I were dull, I would appreciate that. It wouldn't bother me at all. I take it as a compliment, actually. One of the interesting people we've come across recently, at least is interesting for us, is a man who's collecting milk bottles. He has the largest collection of milk bottles in the world, and the collection continues to grow to this day.
My mission is to find every milk bottle I haven't got. My milk bottle museum, loosely called a shed, I like to think of it as a workshop, so it's not just like a stable block or something like that, which contains my collection of 17,500 British milk bottles and probably 2,000 or 3,000 from overseas, from all different countries, Australia and Russia and Argentina, you name it, they had a milk bottle there. Even Trappist monks from Hong Kong had their own milk in bottles. But the beauty of a milk bottle as opposed to a jam jar is you take the jam out of a jam jar and it's gone, it's a one-off. The milk bottle has to go back to the dairy, or should go back to the dairy, where he puts more milk in it, and then it goes to another customer. And the following day goes to somebody else. A milkman at Christmas needs, I think, about 12 to 16 milk bottles per customer, because he has to have 2 being washed, 2 being filled with milk, 2 in their fridge, 2 empties on the doorstep, and when it's over Christmas they multiply up with deliveries. So, and I had a friend years ago who collected milk bottles, and he's from a dairy in Ludlow, and he collected milk bottles, but every Christmas his dad made him put his collection back into the round because they needed every milk bottle they could get to get the milk out, and he had to hope that in January he could get his collection back. He's sure he lost some of his best ones. Just picked one bottle out because it's in your face. It's Associated Dairies. They were a dairy in Leeds in the 1950s and before, and most people won't realise that they're now ASDA, Associated Dairies, ASDA. They bought a couple of little supermarkets, 8 till 8 in the late 50s, early 60s, try and make a few more money, and now they're part of the giant combined Walmart from America. I may have turned these down in the past because normally you get a rollover top, which is a demijohn for wines and vinegars and things like that. This has a milk bottle top, and some of these have been embossed, and I may have walked past them and not even realised they were once milk bottles. So, but I've got one now. I've never not really just don't like milk. It's nothing I would ever drink. I always believe it is a baby food, and you give it to babies and they drink it, but it's not to my taste at all. There's very few dairies now that actually produce milk bottles at all. There's only one company left in the UK that even prints milk bottles, which is Seaway Services up in Paddingham. It's just a shed full of glass. No.
We don't like the word so much anti-clockwise. It infers that we're against clocks. We like clocks. We particularly like clocks twice a year when we get to stay up late and change them at 2 in the morning.
When I got them home, I didn't know what to do with them. I had a pile of bricks, and I thought I'd make a bit of a path with the name showing, and when that filled up, that I put them up as a bit of a wall there with the name showing again. And it became an obsession. When we go out, I always had a plastic bag in my hand, or in my pocket, and we'd pick up bricks. So eventually we've collected, I would say, roughly 150 bricks, and it's got to be a brick with a name. It's got to be a brickmaker's name. But it's a shame that the industry's gone. I mean, all you get now with a brick is a lump of baked clay with 3 holes in. But there are 1 or 2 of the white ones as well that I don't know what sort of clay they use for those. But yeah, I suppose it is artistic in a way. I suppose Tracy Hemming could make something out of them. Do you think? Yeah, people ignore them. They can walk over them time and time again, and they ignore them.
A lot of women appreciate dull men.
My wife is quite happy with my collecting.
Can you talk about your wife, the support of your wife? And
My wife, Maureen, is long-suffering.
I wouldn't say she enjoys it as much as I do, but as we go around the country following our favourite musical, Blood Brothers, we just love it to bits, over 80 times at the moment. Where we stay, there's invariably a post box or 2 or 3 in New Town, New Village, and she often comes with me while we're watching and looking for post boxes, which we do not do all the time. I have to be fair, it is not all post boxes, but I am let off the leash every now and again. I use that word gently, and she's quite happy for me to go wandering, and I then, with my gizmo, I'm looking to see where I might go and where I would like to find an interesting box.
But she likes the places we go to and the people we meet, and sometimes she'll be sat out in the car waiting for me while I'm in a farmhouse, and the next thing we know is the farmer's wife has come out and taken her indoors, and then we have to have tea and cake, and it goes on from there.
But when I brought these bricks, as I say, I didn't know what to do with them. So I decided that I would put bricks down as a bit of a path. And gradually, as the collection built up and built up, I intruded onto her lawn. And she didn't like it, so I was told that when I'd put that last line of bricks down, that was it.
My ex-wife hated the fact that I was a roundabout spotter, and in the end she left me. But I don't mind that, because I can go out now roundabout spotting whenever I want. I don't have any quarrels over that. So that's the positive side of things about that.
So, the intro shot of the documentary, I think it set the mood nicely for the film. It's edited to look like an old-fashioned kind of film. I did it in After Effects by creating a new solid layer. Then from there, the film had like a 3-act structure. So obviously the intro, the first act, was introducing the main character, which was Leyland Carlson. And he's the one that explains what the Dolmens Club is. Act 2 is all the other characters explaining what their hobbies are, and each of them has like an interesting story to tell about their hobby. And then the third and final act is it goes on to talking about what their wives' opinion of their hobbies are. This kind of allowed the film to end, in my opinion, perfectly, with Kevin talking about how in the end his wife left him because of his hobby, because he seemed happy about the fact he could go roundabout spotting whenever he wanted. And it's like the ending is not trying to like prove anything, it just keeps the film like a light-hearted tone, and yeah, it keeps it like entertaining. When I was talking about Act 2, saying all the characters had like an interesting story to go with their hobby, that was true for most of the characters. Apart from Neil, he was quite boring. Even though he had like loads of interviews, all nearly like half an hour long, there wasn't really anything in those interviews which really stood out to me as entertaining. So what I ended up doing was being faced with the ethical question: how far am I willing to go to make these characters interesting? What I ended up doing to Neil's clips was rewording what he said. So a character who did have interesting things to say was the main character, Leyland Carlson, and the way I structured him as the main character was to use him for all like the Hinge clips, and I had this after every character, so that had some consistency in the film. And another thing I did to create consistency in the film was each character had their own music playing, and on the last thing they say is when the music stops, and I edited the music track to fit the length of what they were saying. But then I'd have like a second of black, and then they would reappear on the screen when the audience thinks it's going to go to the next person or whatever. They would reappear and say something out of context, which is quite entertaining in my opinion. This created rhythm in the film, and that's why I did that. Yeah, what they say at the end of their scene also gives an additional insight, another dimension to the characters as well. For example, when Neil says people just walk all over the bricks and they ignore them, like to him that's actually like sad. That's a big deal to him. The way they act towards that situation, it kind of tells a lot to the audience of what these people are like and how much these hobbies mean to them. So the last act, which was about the characters' wives, I started obviously with the main character saying women appreciate dull men, but this is later contradicted, which adds even more to the lightheartedness of the film. So in this last scene I used both montage and verite edits. So the verite is when you actually hear the producer asking Peter the question, what does your wife make of your hobby? And then his reaction just says it all. So yeah, the lower thirds, as I said, was made in After Effects, and I used the techniques that were learned in the masterclass, the After Effects masterclass, to make those. And I just used masks and animated the text. The overall documentary is expository, with overarching themes giving an insight to the characters' lives. And I was able to actually construct the film quite quickly on Premiere, but only because of all the sub-clipping that I did in Avid, especially like all the select reels, like the ones about wives. I had others about like holidays and stuff like that, but I chose not to use them in the end because I didn't want to like go into too many different like things. So for me, the perks of using Avid were obviously being able to subclip and add metadata and create select reels, but those perks did not outweigh the perks of using Premiere, which are easy access to After Effects, which is important for me because I use that a lot. But in the end, who really cares what I made it on? I think I made a good documentary, and yeah, I enjoyed making it.